Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 11 o'clock and it is December 13th. This is Chattin with CHAP, and I'm your host, Ginger Wade. And guess what? I have a guest with me this morning. This is Annie Yorty. She is going to come share. Well, she's here already. She's not coming, but she's going to share with us some of her homeschool journey and her life journey. She has some wonderful things to share with us, but I'm going to take up too much of her time. We're just going to jump right into it because I think we're going to have a really fun conversation this morning, really helpful conversation. So Annie, why don't you tell us, our audience here, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hello, Ginger. I'm really glad to be here with you and your audience today too. Yeah, I have graduated from homeschooling after 16
Mm.
years. No, but I homeschooled my children for 16 years, but I came to that decision in along a very twisty, windy path, starting out as an accountant, with a good career, feeling God pushed me into stay-at-home mom. And then finally, some other circumstances caused me to look at homeschooling my children. I have a 33-year-old daughter who has Down syndrome. I have a 26-year-old son who I also homeschooled. And now in this last year and a half, we have a teenager that we did not plan to raise, but we are.
Yeah.
So there we
Wow.
are. So things happen, and life has there's so much adventure in it, but we'll
Yeah.
talk more
Adventure's a
about that.
nice way to put it. Adventure's a nice way to put it. But you've had it sounds, especially, I didn't know about your teen at home. So you've had a lot of like unsuspected, unexpected
Right,
things
very much.
happen. Yeah. So wow,
Yeah.
that's quite the journey. So okay, so you had mentioned homeschooling.
Mhm.
So and your oldest daughter has Down syndrome. So lead us into like what brought you to homeschool. Were you like, yeah, we're gonna homeschool from the get-go, or what? How did you come around to the whole let's do the
Oh,
homeschool thing?
it's a big, long story, but I'm going to try to boil that down a little bit for our time frame. But basically, I was diehard public school inclusion. That was the goal
Oh,
for my
okay.
daughter. And we
Mm-hmm.
did that successfully for a couple of years. And then we had moved and it became very unsuccessful. I
Mm.
basically went through, I call it my 2-year nightmare of
Mm-hmm.
trying to make that work in a public school that did not want to do it.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
went the whole 9 yards through due process and actually won that case. And so the school
Wow.
was going to have to include her in a
Yeah.
regular classroom.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted, right? But God was working in my heart. And that summer, the beginning of that summer, after we had won the case, he just impressed on me, listen, this is a hard issue. If
Mm-hmm.
this school does not want Alyssa
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
in that classroom,
Yeah.
it will be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
You will be
Mm-hmm.
miserable.
Mm-hmm.
You will not, they will cause her to fail if they don't want
Mm-hmm.
her. And you will be right on this merry-go-round again. So that's when I knew some people that homeschooled. I just didn't think it was right for me because of her special
Mm-hmm.
needs.
Mm-hmm.
And God just showed me as I kind of started to embrace that concept that I can do this. He's with me and he's going to show me the way. And so that's the starting point of homeschooling. I was never planning to homeschool this
Mm-hmm.
child,
But
but
that was
we
really
ended up
great.
16 years of doing it with two
Yeah,
kids. So
that's wonderful. But it's great that you were prepared to do what he called you to do, that you were and you were ready to go with it, with all your heart, right? Like you were like, okay, we're gonna do this thing. But you also you have a lot of heart because man, you went through the whole process there, right? And one, but I was as you were sharing with that, I was thinking about yes, you might have won the right to do it. That doesn't mean they're going to do it willingly,
right,
right? It doesn't
right.
mean they're really
Mhm.
going to support you, which is what's challenging. And I think in the public school setting, because I mean, you don't have control over how all these other people feel or think about
Right.
anything, really. So you're just kind of up to however they're going to do with your
Right. We're
situations. But
submitting our most precious thing
yeah,
in this life to strangers who may or may
Yeah.
not care. And
Yeah.
so and I found myself with her in public school. I was spending hours of time in a day trying to make all that work. And I'm like, this could be better
Mhm.
spent. And
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So I'm so glad. And 16 years, and that's wonderful. And you homeschooled your son too.
Right.
So that means it was, I mean, you saw the blessing with your daughter and
I did. Hmm.
went through with your son
Yeah.
too. So that's wonderful. So we have lots of folks out there that, struggling with children with learning differences, so many different various types of issues. And they're always looking for some kind of help or support or, just, encourage me on through the next day.
Mhm.
So do you have any resources or anything that you did with your daughter that you think, would be good for people to be aware of or, hear about, or how did you handle that? It was your first child, you didn't know anything about homeschooling, and here you are adding all those things into the mix.
Yeah. Well, and this was like in the beginning days of all the internet. So I was on the internet
Oh,
looking for resources. And actually, the first thing I read was from Deborah Bell, who way
ah,
back,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
believe if I recall, she's a Pennsylvania
Yes,
person,
yes.
right?
She's been at CHAP
And
convention many times, right? And we've
I
used
thought
some of
so.
her things, and she's amazing. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so I really credit her with helping me to sort of figure out a direction to get started. I read her book for oh shoot, why can't I think of the name right now? The basically the Getting Started book that she
Hmm.
wrote, and
Hmm.
so that helped me understand my daughter's learning style. I already had some idea because even though she
Hmm.
was in public school, I taught her a lot at home. For
Hmm.
instance, if you have somebody who's kind of at the beginning end of things, I used a book called Teaching Reading to Children with Down Syndrome. I did that before I homeschooled and taught Alyssa to read. So that was really, really helpful for me.
But you were
Um,
homeschooling before you were homeschooling, so.
Basically, yeah, I just didn't know it. Yes. So, but what I learned about Alyssa is she is a kinesthetic learner, and she
Mhm.
likes to, if she can act something out or show it
Mhm.
in some way,
Mhm.
that's really good for her. So I went in that direction for any kind of curriculum choices. And she also has a strength of reading, so, and not math. but,
Mm,
but
mhm.
um, so I tried to just kind of go in that direction of the strength. Sometimes, especially in the special needs, we kind of really focus in on the needs, the weaknesses, and you do have to address them. But I
Mhm.
really learned over time that just run with the strengths, and
Mhm.
do what you got to do in those difficult areas. But
Mhm.
sometimes those are just going to be. Um,
Mhm.
you may not be able
Mhm.
to improve those, but if you can go with the strengths, you're giving them something that motivates them to keep learning.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I did everything literature based. So
That's wonderful.
things like um, uh, I didn't use any kind of curriculum in a box, so to speak,
Mhm.
because of her needs are all over the board. Her achievement levels are different, and so I picked different things for different subjects. So things like uh, Beautiful Feet books, world
Mhm.
history that was all
Mhm.
literature based. She loves to read about people, and we used all of that
Mhm.
for her. I used apologia and science
Mhm.
classes
Mhm.
when they were older. And, for my son, he also enjoyed the literature. So even like as a little kid, five in a row, things like
Mhm.
that, just
Mhm.
they're a little more relaxed. And,
Mhm.
you know, at that young age, I don't get too intense. I'll
Mhm.
just say.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so those are some of the things. I love art. So I try to make sure that things like Barry Stebbing has a whole series of
Oh,
art
yes.
books, which
Yeah.
I loved.
That's how
And
great their art, right? Isn't it how
yes,
great their art? Yeah, yeah.
yep.
He was
And
at convention too.
Feed My
Yeah.
Lambs. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really
Uh-huh.
like his stuff. I used Matthew C.
Mhm.
Really
Mhm.
good for
Mhm.
kids that like, I was such a sequential math learner, and realized, oh, not everybody is. So
Mhm.
I really, really appreciated that math curriculum and
Mhm.
used that all the time. So
Mhm.
um, I liked for one of the most important things that we're doing, obviously, is discipling our children, teaching them God's ways. And
Mhm.
that's the highest goal. So while, we all get onto the math and reading, the Bible is important. A lot of times that just consisted of me sitting with the kids every day and reading something from the
Mhm.
Bible,
Mhm.
discussing it,
Mhm.
basically having a little Bible study time every morning. Sometimes I like something called 24 Family Ways. I don't know if
Okay.
you've ever heard of that,
No,
but
I haven't.
it's um it's for younger kids, and it's
Mhm.
just like almost like a flip folder kind of a book, and it talks about 24 things that God kind of virtues, let's say,
Oh, okay.
that God has. And I love that. I did that multiple years just because it starts with, like, we love the Lord Jesus Christ with wholehearted devotion. And then
Mhm.
there's the Bible verse, and some activities and coloring pages and things like that. And so it was all not only teaching about God's ways, but kind of
Mhm.
how our families sets goals and things like that. What are our
Okay.
values as a
Yeah, yeah.
family?
Yeah. Oh,
So
that sounds
loved
good.
that. So, but really, whatever you choose, it should play to your child's strengths, I think,
Mhm.
and it should always um, include. We need to put that highest priority on teaching them God's
Yeah.
ways.
Yes, absolutely. I loved what you said earlier too about focusing on her strengths. There's so many, or there's places where there's weaknesses, and this is for any child really, but to focus on their strengths and praise them or encourage them in their strengths. I don't know, encourages them, right? It helps them
Yeah,
to continue on
yeah,
better
they
and
need the motivation.
yeah, and maybe even tackle the hard things because there's encouragement from the other things, and when you conquer
Yeah,
the hard things, then it's like, woo, it's really great. So yeah, it's very challenging sometimes to make sure that you're focusing on places to give praise and not seeing the things that could be better or need attention, or it's
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
very, yeah,
It's a balance, of
yeah,
course. You do
yeah,
need to address
yeah.
weaknesses or needs, whatever they are. I mean, you're talking to the person who spent 9 months teaching a kid to tie shoes. Okay, so
Wow.
Velcro would have worked, but
Yeah.
so,
We're gonna do this.
I definitely, have that streak in me that I might really focus in. But sometimes, I've learned there's some balance there.
Yeah, but in that way though too, you've shown that you can do a hard thing. It is
Mhm.
possible to do a hard thing. It just like takes grit, right? Grit the teeth
Mm,
and go, right?
that's a good word.
But it's possible. It's possible. But
That's right.
not everything has to be the hill to die on, right? Not everything has
Oh
to be,
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I like, as a small example, my daughter, when she took a very long time to write, but she eventually did, but her spelling was awful. And by now we're like 12 years old or something. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking, I guess she's just never going to be a good speller.
Mhm.
But somewhere along the line, like in her high school years, someone brought spelling power to my attention.
Oh, okay.
And I remember looking at it and thinking, really, that's going to work. But it did work. I did it. And she's a really good speller now.
Oh,
I
that's
never
great.
dreamed she'd be a good speller.
Yeah. So awesome. You never know. And you know what?
That's right.
Those things come when they need to come, right? They come at the
Right.
time that's going to be most beneficial. So that's another way for us as homeschool moms to be like, that's okay. Back off a little bit, mom,
Yeah.
it'll be okay, right? It'll come
I
when
have
it
a
needs
whole
to
life
come.
for
Yes.
some of these things.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So, okay, so no doubt, in the 9 months that you took to teach how to tie shoes, there had to be times in there, other than just tying shoes too, when you just wanted to go, oh,
Mhm.
I'm done. I am exhausted. This is not working. What do you do? What do you do with
Yeah.
those emotions? Like, what do you do at
Um,
that time?
well, you do feel as a mom, like you're pouring yourself out. It says like a drink offering.
Yeah.
And my picture of that is like just liquid being poured out onto a dry land, that
Mhm.
it just runs off
Mhm.
and there's nothing there. And you wonder if anything will ever grow, from what you're
Mhm.
pouring out there.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so there are many, many days like that in homeschooling. I don't want to sugarcoat anything if
Yeah, yeah,
you're
how
just
about it?
getting started.
Mhm.
But first of all, I think number one, you need to try to make sure that you are taking in God's word every day.
Yes.
That's our spiritual nourishment,
Mhm.
and that's our, builds our faith. So definitely, if you're feeling really dry and
Mhm.
ready to give up, get back to that if you have
Mhm.
gotten away from it.
Absolutely.
But beyond that, I know when I've been at that moment, I have learned just to stop and say, God, I need some encouragement. Would you please bring
Yeah. Yeah.
something,
Right.
something in
Mhm.
front of my face that will
Mhm.
encourage me? And
Mhm.
just ask for what you need. And I have learned that he does that. It might be something someone says, it might be something your kid does that
Mhm.
actually changes, maybe not though. But there's something he's gonna bring to you. He wants to encourage his
Mhm.
children.
Mhm.
And so he doesn't
Mhm.
withhold it from us. So I think that's just like one thing that I would say to do. I think when we get with other people that are on
Mhm.
this journey too,
Mhm.
that is a big
Mhm.
encouragement. We can see like, okay, sometimes our expectations lead us to that dry place where we think, oh, it should be
Oh,
different. And
yes. Yeah.
being with other people sort of
Mhm.
lets us know like, it's not all that different,
Yeah.
and we need to be real with each other, not just like show the
Mhm.
best our friends,
Mhm.
like,
Yes.
get
Absolutely.
real. So there's that. I think sometimes I do try to build in encouraging things like going to the convention, the CHAP convention. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't say that just to plug that, but going to something like that really restores your reason for doing this. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
it's not all about in fact, it's mostly not about the curriculum or
Yeah.
how to
I
teach
agree.
this or that. It's about building up your reserves, your inner,
Mhm.
girding up your inner man's,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know.
Yes.
And
I
so I
always
think that's great.
I always wondered with that when we first started, I was like, why do they do this in May? Like at that time it was May. We did it in June a few times. Now we're back to May,
Mhm.
but why May? Like that
Uh,
doesn't seem to make sense to me. And when this was before I started homeschooling, then I started homeschooling and I'm like, oh, well, I get it because in May you're like, I'm done.
done.
You're so
Oh
exhausted.
my
And
goodness. So true.
you go and you hear the speakers and you talk to people, the excitement and the encouragement, and you're just every single time we walked out and we were like, wow, that was awesome. I can totally do this again.
That's right.
I'm
That's
totally ready.
right.
And it just took a weekend, right? It just took a
Mhm.
weekend of encouragement.
I
Yeah.
cannot I cannot promote something like that enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe strongly in that. I think too, I I would I find it sort of hits in the middle of winter sometimes, when you get
Yes.
and
Yes.
so
February.
I just yeah. So I like to have fun. And sometimes you just need to take a
Mm,
break and have some
absolutely.
fun.
Hmm.
So I would just have like a party for no reason or something
Right.
like that.
That's
Invite a
awesome.
couple of your homeschooling friends
Hmm.
over. Don't make it a big deal, but just have a little bit of a party or do something
Hmm.
fun. Step out
Hmm.
of the normal and just, have fun with your kids. It's not all about just like
Hmm.
teaching them, but enjoy them. And so that also, I think, brings your spirit back into a right place.
Yeah.
Um, I like to feed my own spirit with like I like creative things. And I think that
Hmm.
feeds us, that kind of bring God is a creator God.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so he put that
Yeah.
in each one of us. It looks different in everyone, and that's a whole big
Hmm.
topic. But
Hmm.
do something like I watched my kids learn how to play piano and then taught myself, stuff
Ooh,
like that.
nice.
I'm not great, but I can read the music, I can play it, some
Hmm.
simple things. So stuff like that makes
Hmm.
my heart happy and just
Hmm.
lifts me up,
Yeah.
and takes my nose
Yeah.
away from the grindstone a little bit.
Hmm. Yeah, I think maybe on those times when we want to quit, maybe it is just a big sign to take a break, right? You need mental health day or whatever it is,
Right,
like the
right.
fun day, take a field trip. Yeah. When it
That,
snows,
yeah.
I have a certain like menu, like kids go out and play, and then I have a certain menu that I only make on those special snow days, like
Uh-huh.
certain things from when I grew up, and all that kind of stuff, or pancakes and bacon or whatever, something that's special.
Mhm.
And they come in, and then they have the cocoa and the, all the fun things, and that always, yeah, always is
Yeah.
very cheerful. But February, yeah, take a break in February. Something, make a big
Absolutely.
deal of Valentine's Day. I don't know, do something.
Yeah,
Do
it's
something
just have a
exciting.
party. And really it counts the school. I counted the schools anyways,
Absolutely.
because I would take a book and just sort of make a party out of whatever the book's theme was. So it's like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
No, that's great. No, those are good skills too. I mean, that's things that you can learn to use as an adult, learning, themed
Mhm.
things or whatever. It's good. It's good to be
Yeah.
spontaneous too. So through all of this, no doubt you have had, like even just the choice to do the homeschooling, the growth that you've encountered because of what God has brought you through. Like, ha- talk about like your faith journey and growing with this. We
Mhm.
talked about some things already, but is there
Right.
anything else you'd like to share with us regarding what God has brought you through these years?
Yeah. So yeah, the what I realized, like you said, you get to the end of that year in May and you're just like totally done. And I realized at that point that God was discipling me as much as I was discipling my
Yes.
own kids in
Yes.
this
Yeah.
journey. Having those kids with us 24/7.
Mhm.
Uh, Now, for me, because I came from a different mindset, I was a career woman. I went
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
work and they went somewhere else. So coming back together with them all the time, 24/7, was like a huge, like, whoa,
Ah,
this is rough.
Mhm.
God showed
Mhm.
me honestly how selfish I was. I'll just be real. Um,
Mhm.
that I wanted me things
Mhm.
and it didn't always look very nice with my kids, to be honest. And so God graciously revealed those things to me over time. And he just taught me along the way about that as I was teaching and raising my kids
Mhm.
in this
Mhm.
more intimate way. Um, I learned so much about how I relate to God as my father.
Yeah.
And so that was huge. And then
Mhm.
um, at some point, I realized this is more than just teaching my kids. This is a calling.
Mhm.
And if you don't understand your homeschooling as a calling,
Mhm.
um, it doesn't, you're not going to make it through. You need to
Yeah,
understand God
absolutely.
called you to this
Mhm.
work, and it's an eternal purpose that you're
Mhm.
serving.
Mhm.
And so I think it was the end of that first year, that summer, God led me to a verse. It's First Thessalonians 5:24. Faithful is he who has called you, and he will
Mhm.
also bring it to
Mhm.
pass.
Mhm.
Simple, short verse, easy to memorize. And I put that verse on my computer as a screensaver, and it
Mhm.
scrolled across my screen. And then,
Mhm.
after a few years, had a new computer. It scrolled across my screen. It scrolled across my screen for
Good.
16 years
That's
while I
awesome.
homeschooled, because I needed to know that God was the one that was going to make this happen. He
Mhm.
was in charge of the outcome, and I'm his servant, to do my best with what he gives me. And he doesn't give me enough to do it all by myself. You know,
Mhm.
he
Mhm.
just does not do that, because he doesn't want us to think we're self-sufficient.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
sometimes think it, we
Yes.
never are, but I think it sometimes. And so he will show us when we're not, and he will bring circumstances about that,
Mhm.
not only grow our faith, but just bring us running back to him for what
Mhm.
he has to give us. So I'm still on that journey. I'm not complete, even though I'm not homeschooling anymore. There are other things
Yeah.
now, but
Yeah. Yeah. So I think what you said there is so important, because that hit me full in the face at some point in time. I don't remember when, but it was definitely like, this is more about me. Like, this is more about me and my sanctification, or whatever you want to call it, to be more like Jesus. Than, yes, the kids are getting educated, and yes, I'm training them, but Oh, like, yeah. Yeah, kind of so much more than, when you get married, it's God is nice though. He gives us these little incremental steps, right? So you get
Yes.
married just a little bit and then you realize, oh, and then you have children and babies and and then, choose to homeschool and it's just all these
Mhm.
steps. It grows and you learn so much your need for Christ, which isn't that purposeful? I mean, he's so purposeful
Yeah.
in all the things he leads us through. Um,
Yes.
which is it's a joy really to see how he works and all those things. It's not free of trial by any means. But it is a joy to see how he works for all those things. So you've had a wonderful journey and God is changing you so much through what you're going through. So does that translate to your daughter, to your children? Like, how has their faith been impacted by the choice to homeschool?
Right. I think that, I mean, I can't obviously say how it would have been otherwise if they had been public schooled, but I do thank God for the opportunity to be a daily influence, and more than just, the end of the school day, but that I had that opportunity to teach them about how God's ways intersect with every single area of life. They, it's in math. God created all this,
Yeah. Yeah.
everything in this
Yeah.
world, all the laws of the universe. So
Mhm.
he's not
Mhm.
segregated to a certain realm that's just spiritual,
Yeah.
but everything that we're doing is he's there.
Mhm.
And the great thing about homeschooling, the great and horrible thing at the same time, maybe, is that when your kids display an issue that needs to be corrected, that you need to address, whatever it is, it could be, something from heartbreak to misbehavior or sin,
Mhm.
whatever it is, that
Mhm.
you can break from your routine right then and there and address it. You can set aside the science or the math or
Mhm.
whatever it is
Mhm.
and sit down and deal with that. And you're in tune, much more in tune, I think, with
Mhm.
the kids than you would be if they're in public school.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
it's not that they don't ever encounter any. I mean, I think it's important as homeschoolers that we do encounter the world,
Yeah. Yes.
and teach them how to think about that.
Mhm.
So, but really,
Mhm.
that's what I think has been an awesome benefit of homeschooling, because I was able to just pause, and it really gave me some fits sometimes because I am goal oriented. So I would
Yes.
be like, oh, I
Yes.
want to get this done,
Yeah.
but I really
Yeah.
should stop and deal with this.
Yeah.
But stop and deal with it.
Yeah.
It's the most important thing.
Yeah. Yes. I totally agree. That's a really hard one for me too. And it's happened in the realm of character building, but it's also happened in the realm of how fast to go through a curriculum for me. Like I just like everywhere, I just have to be like,
Yeah, true.
okay, this is not
Mhm.
what this child
Yes.
needs. I need to set aside my goals and my thoughts of how things should go
Yeah.
and just let it be. And everyone is so much happier
Yes.
and learning so much better, like when we pay attention to
Mhm.
their needs that way. So, well, Annie, one of the reasons I got connected with you is that you reached out to me because you have a book
That's true.
that
Yeah.
it is out. Is it out yet or is it coming
No,
out?
it's in process, coming in March. That is our
Um,
expected launch date. So yeah, I do love to connect with people. My passion is to give people encouragement in those twists and turns of life. I mean, we
mhm.
all have them, but I don't know, I've had quite a few. And so that's just what God's put in my heart to share with people. So I do that at my website, which is just my name, annieyorty.com. And you can go there. You can find a weekly blog that hopefully will encourage you. I just launched a podcast for moms of special needs kids.
Oh, great.
It's a short
That's
snippet of
great.
Bible encouragement once a week.
Awesome.
You can go and you can find that on one of my pages there at the website. And the book there's information about that there as well. Sign up and you'll just get, not spammed, I promise. You'll just get an email with updates. And so I look forward to connecting with your audience. I'm really hoping that I can come to the conference.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
I hope that I have the opportunity to do that too. So yeah, I just want to encourage all you moms, hang in there and just trust God. He's with you, and he has your back. He's giving you everything you need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm so glad you were on today. I can't imagine that there's not a number of people out there who are encouraged by what you said, because there's so many wonderful things. And I was privileged to read a little bit of Annie's book, and it is very encouraging and totally relatable. I mean, I was just reading it going, yes, yes, yes. And sometimes it's just good to know, right, that there's someone else out there who has felt the way you felt, or experienced some of the similar things that you have experienced. So you just know you're not alone. It doesn't mean you have an answer to the issues,
Right.
but you know you're not alone is so important and so helpful.
It does help. And my book is about how God's revealed himself to me through raising this child with Down syndrome. So there's a lot about like the people who have disabilities in their families will relate to. Honestly, I think it's any parent's going to relate, because parenting a kid with special needs is still parenting. And we have a lot of the same issues.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So true. So moms out there, so glad that you tuned in with us today. And remember to take joy in the fact that you get to train your children to follow Christ in all of life. And like we talked here today, Annie and I, it's God's not in this little thing. He's in all the things, you know, he created all the things. And I love the whole science and math thing, because most children have some degree of distaste with math, and I'm like, but it's so cool. Like, I love math. I'm kind of a math head, but I'm like, but it works out. It works out every time. Like, there's a way that it works out. Like, it's just, that's the orderly part, right? And then the creation is so wild and crazy and amazing. So I'm so glad you were on today, Annie. This was a wonderful conversation. And yes, hopefully we will be seeing you at convention.
Yeah. So, well, thank you again for the opportunity to come.
This is great. So blessings on all of the things, the ways that you're reaching out to people. It will be such a blessing to them, I just know. So, all right.
Thanks. God bless you too.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week. Okay.